I'm sure that what I say today will offend somebody or some group of people or be interpreted in a certain way. That's fine to me. This is one of those things where if I'm not able to speak what I actually think on certain things on this channel, there's really no point to the channel at all. If it's just some kind of hype house type, oh boy, everything's great or everything sucks. Either one of those is just trash. And when it comes to GTA 6, this is a game that I've been looking forward to for a while. Not really like sitting, like twiddling my thumbs, like, please, please, dear God, let it come out, because I know that Rockstar takes forever, but the more information that comes out around this, the less I care. Now, I do want to say first off that there are some things in these announcements that have been coming out that I'm actually interested in. For example, the female protagonist. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be good just because it has a female protagonist. Any better than any game that just has a male protagonist is automatically good. Hayes is the once touted as the Halo killer, is a campaign mostly focused around male protagonists. The writing sucks. It's a funny joke, but it's not a well-written game, So being male or female does not automatically make something good or bad. But I did want to say that, this is something for me. In GTA Online, I actually play as a girl because I think it's interesting. I think it's fun. It's something that I'm not in real life. It's a video game. I play it to have a good time. And I like dressing up my virtual character in whatever I want, whether it be like insane trench coat levels of craziness or skimpy outfits for the beach. I don't care. It's a fun time. That's what games are. So to actually see a female character in GTA 6, it's not something that matters to me a ton either way, but it's cool because it's not really something we've seen in the single player component of the game before, which I still think really needs to be expanded on, the single player. And that's something we're going to get into today as well. But I think a lot of people, they wrap up criticism of what I'm going to talk about in that, or in this other thing where they talk about expanding the game over time to adding more cities and stuff like that and having more interior locations. I think that's cool. Now, would I prefer that the game just comes out and is totally done and I can just play it whenever and it's done? Yeah, that's how I prefer my video games, but still, the idea of adding in new cities and stuff like that, like was released in this Bloomberg report about GTA 6, is actually neat. However, the politicization of this game is beyond bizarre to me, but not unexpected because the world we live in now is extremely sensitive about a lot of things. Jokes are something that are somehow controversial now, despite the intention of them. Like, that really, in my opinion, should be what matters. But of course, Rockstar has been changing its ways for a long, long time. I would argue ever since, kind of getting in bed with 2K and all this other stuff and really aiming for microtransaction hell for gamers and pushing essentially a grindy game that doesn't at all value its single player and doesn't add in any of the vehicles from GTA Online really to the single player, doesn't really add in many or of the weapons or outfits or any of that. The game has focused on being a game as a service, and because of that, I've personally lost a lot of interest in it. So when it comes to today, and when I'm recording this, July 27th, and Bloomberg is talking about how Rockstar has become a more inclusive culture and is going to be avoiding jokes that punch down at marginalized groups, it's something to me that's just kind of amusing and sad, because one of the points of GTA forever was a sense of parody. Was a sense, and I know a lot of people use the word parody to cover up some pretty disgusting stuff. I think that the intent of these jokes matters. One of my favorite things about GTA 5 and GTA Online was that it kind of took shots at everybody. And I've always kind of believed in the George Carlin methodology or the Dave Chappelle methodology of when it comes to humor. Like, I can find something funny if it's taking a shot at stupid white people, just as I can take something funny if it's taking a shot at LGBTQ people in a way that is not intended to hurt you. Do you know what I mean by that? What I mean is, I guess I don't know why I asked, because I'm not really, I guess I'm talking to you, but I can't hear you. The reason that I'm saying that, though, is because Something like, for example, the Republican Space Rangers is really freaking funny in GTA, where it's just very clearly making fun of these hyper rich white Republican people who are like very out of touch. And then on the other hand, you have something like, I believe it's the Super Teen Rainbow Force or something like that, where the entire team is like extremely liberal, and it's basically a bunch of people who go around talking for everyone, telling them how they should be offended, and telling them, like, you know, you should be upset by this, that, and this. Both of those things are parodies that make fun of extremes, you know? And there are people, if I'm recalling correctly, on the Rainbow Force that are also gay. And there were some jokes in this game, in GTA 5, aimed at gay people. There were jokes aimed at straight people, and their values, if you even want to call where you put your, you know, dingling a value. I don't personally care about it, but it is to some people. You know, there has always been jokes in Grand Theft Auto and even in Red Dead Redemption that kind of make fun of the more outlandish and ridiculous, I guess I would say, elements of society, really emphasizing, and I wouldn't even say glorifying it, but kind of pointing out how ridiculous it is with humor and kind of making you laugh. Now, that's not for everybody, and that's fine. Nothing is for everybody. There's plenty of stuff that's not for me. I just don't really play it or watch it if I know that it's not for me. And it's odd to me that Grand Theft Auto's new, I guess, aim, if you can call it that, is to do these things like be inclusive, is to do these things like tone back their humor, which is one of the best things they had going for them, taking shots at literally everyone and making everybody laugh. You know, like, I know gay people who play GTA Online, who find it hilarious, who find the parodies hilarious. I know literally hardcore Republicans that find the Republican Space Rangers hilarious because it points out like the most insane members of those groups and kind of shows how just stupid they are. I know people who are liberal who love Grand Theft Auto. I know people who don't care about politics at all that get a kick out of the fact that these games have a laugh at everyone's expense. And that's kind of where I fall on this. Is this to me is really stupid because you already have a decline of Grand Theft Auto in general. Now, what do you mean by that, Jay? The games are really fun. I agree with you. Even online, super fun. Honestly, I really enjoy it. The few times a year I get into it for a few weeks, it's kind of a phase for me where I get into it a couple weeks a year, play the hell out of it, and then kind of let it rest. I have a lot of fun with it, but let's look at the actual game itself. Originally, Grand Theft Auto was very, very focused on single-player experience. It was very focused on you playing the game yourself and having a good time. Over time, what has the game become more focused on? Like we already talked about, multiplayer and online. Now, is that bad in and of itself? No, except that they don't actually do the work to add any of those things to single player. They don't add in almost any of the guns from the online to the single player. They add in almost none of the character customization from the online to the single player. They add in almost none of the missions or none of this or that. And so it kind of hits the point where online is almost designed to be the superior product now. You know, gone are the days of aiming at single player. And while that doesn't make it bad, there are games that are only online that people love, like Overwatch and League of Legends and Heroes of the Storm and all the MMOs like Star Trek Online and RuneScape and World of Warcraft. You know, the list goes on and on. Internet doesn't equal bad, but the problem that they've gone down with, I guess the problem with the road they've gone down, is what I'm trying to say, is that it's designed around microtransactions. It's designed around how do we get you to spend more money in our game other than just buying the game itself. It's not even a free-to-play experience that's kind of like trying to get you to buy things, but it gave you something for free. It's not that at all, like League or like Multiverses is a good example of that now. Even if you don't like that model, at least they give you something for free, you know, early on. GTA has always kind of been this single player thing, but now it's designed around how do we get people to pay more for our game now that it's out, because it takes so dang long to actually progress in our multiplayer component, and you are at a disadvantage compared to other people who put money into the game. That's kind of the road that they've gone down. So you already have a gameplay decline because of that. Balancing what people got into the games for, all of that stuff. Decline. You know, you don't see any more like the Ballad of Gay Tony, one of the expansions for GTA 4. Where are those for 5? Like, I'm still waiting. Oh, right, they don't exist, because what they found out was that the multiplayer was infinitely more monetizable, so basically piss off. They don't care. It's just not going to happen. It's the same thing that's kind of going on with Red Dead Redemption. Look at Red Dead Online. It was supposed to be the new GTA Online. When it wasn't, it was borderline abandoned immediately to go back to the money printing machine that was GTA Online. And where's that single player content and expansions for Red Dead 2? I mean, I don't see them. Do you see them? They happened in the original Red Dead Redemption. You had things like Undead Nightmare. Where is that now? Oh, it's gone? It's not here? Oh, okay, well, at least the humor is still here. At least you can still have fun kind of existing in the world, having a good time, hanging out with your friends, having a laugh at your or anybody else's expense, and not taking the world seriously because it is a video game. I know that this is a radical concept for some of the people who got mad at the game. It is a video game, an object of fun. And people, you go through and you look at things like the Bloomberg article that Jason Schrier wrote that take like a huge moral grandstand on how they removed cops and crooks after the sad passing of George Floyd. You take a look at that and the moral grandstanding, in my opinion, in this article around that, or around things about how they've changed from a frat culture into a real company, which, by the way, that's a good thing. You don't want your company to be a frat boy culture. You know what that leads to? Insane work hours, going out partying hard, health problems, complications, not a good product in the end compared to what it could be, because you're basically sacrificing your mental and physical health to have fun. It's not that you can't have fun attitudes and activities and stuff like that at the workplace, but a lot of these frat culture places, they're just douchey. So it's good, to move away from that kind of real life culture and treat people well. I think that that's something a lot of people get kind of caught up in when making fun of or critiquing this whole thing, is like, there are things in this announcement that are interesting. The female protagonist, to me, interesting. Some of my favorite video game characters are female. Genuinely. Characters like Xiao Jun from Assassin's Creed. I'm still waiting for a game for her that's not a side-scroller, even though her side-scroller is great. Still waiting for a 3D Xiao Jun full game. Where is it? Where is it, Ubisoft? Obviously Tomb Raider, Lara Croft. Obviously Metroid with Samus. There are a lot of characters I really enjoy that are female. So for me, that's not really the part of this that matters at all. It's something that actually could be very interesting. But I think what really frustrates me is what Jason Schrier says, because he goes on to say basically that moves like these once seemed unthinkable for a company whose best-selling franchise is a satirical depiction of America that involves playing gangsters who kill civilians and where women are mostly depicted as sex objects. Grand Theft Auto 5 was a nihilistic parody that threw insults at everything from right-wing radio hosts to liberal politicians. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, by the way. That was actually a good thing, believe it or not, because it gave it personality. It showed the insanity of a lot of these things in culture. And if you look at the sex stuff in these games, it is not sitting here and being like, hey, by the way, women are worthless and you should use them for whatever you can. It's pointing out the insanity of a lot of that culture in real life that does exist, by the way. Let's not pretend it doesn't. It does absolutely exist, especially in pockets and different places in the world, America included in some areas and groups of people. This is something that happens absolutely. And so when you look at these things, they were actually part of what gave this franchise its flavor. It gave it its personality, being able to mock those things and point out the ridiculousness and ludicrousness of it. And, when people say, well, why can't you enjoy something that doesn't have that in it? I absolutely can. Star Trek The Next Generation, one of my favorite shows of all time, has almost nothing like that. It has social lessons. I would argue the show is probably far more left than it is right, but it isn't exactly a parody or anything like that. Another example of that would be, for a show I love, The Clone Wars. Another example of that, Dexter. There's plenty of things I love that don't have that, but the problem is, it's not like they built their identity on the back of it. It's not like they went and built their identity on these ideas and on being funny and on being enjoyable and on being a parody. Imagine for a second, whether you love or hate it, South Park, take out anything offensive. Just take it all out. where are the jokes? I mean, there's going to be some, but a lot of the show is making fun of stuff. Member berries. That's making fun of nostalgia, right? Well, also then you have Mr. Garrison becoming Donald Trump. That's making fun of politics in this country. You have like Hillary Clinton in South Park, borderline handing the election over to Mr. Garrison. That's making fun of politics in our country. On both sides, by the way, for America. It's one of those things to me where the problem isn't the jokes. The problem is why you're aiming them at somebody. So if you have a writer at Rockstar who's like, I'm going to really stick it to the LGBTQ, I hope some of them remove themselves from the world because of this joke. Okay, well, that's wrong. First off, you shouldn't remove yourself from the world because of a joke. That's coming from somebody who in the past wanted to. But, that's wrong anyways because that's a bad intent behind it. But if you have someone at Rockstar writing who's like, I have a joke that's going to make fun of Republicans. And by the way, I have a joke that's going to make fun of these weird people who walk around college campuses and police what kind of hairstyles you can have and get in fights about it because of cultural appropriation or whatever. That's funny to me too. You can have both of these and be even-handed, right? You make fun of white people, maybe make a joke at a white person's expense, make a joke at a black person's expense. I don't think anyone is so sensitive that they can't handle that. And when you say these terms, like, to me, the term punching down is offensive when we're talking about marginalized groups. Because who are some of the strongest-willed people I know? People who are in these groups, people who are LGBTQ, or people who are black, or people who are whatever. They're just normal people, And some of them have had to deal with a lot of BS. You know what that actually makes them? More able to persevere through challenges and through criticism and through different things. And a lot of them are able to laugh at themselves, just like a lot of, anyone is able to take a joke about themselves in good faith. That's the key, in good faith, and laugh about it and say, yep, maybe I'm not, my wife is, I'm not. Maybe say I'm LGBTQ and there is a joke at the expense of the insane version of, people who belong to the same group as me, who are borderline militarized and all they care about is what's between your legs and where you put it, someone like that, and make a joke about that. That's not a problem to me. You know what I mean? You have these different political beliefs and you do the same thing. I think when you start saying things like this, and I don't even expect them to change their language for me, say whatever the hell you want, but don't get on a moral grandstanding precipice about it. But when you start saying things like, I'm not going to punch down, what do you mean punch down? Like, what are you talking about? Are black people below you? Are gay people below you? They're unable to actually handle criticism or jokes because of where they put their ding-a-ling or because of the shade of their melanin or whatever that somehow puts them beneath you in terms of jokes? And why is there an idea that white people are stronger in their ability to take criticism and take jokes and not care? I don't really like this attitude of, well, let's not punch down at the weaklings. That's what it comes off to me as. And especially when it's coming from someone like Jason Schrier, who's reporting on it, who has infinitely more money than me. So whenever you talk about this guy, you have to be careful what you say, and he blocks everyone on social media. I think he blocked my friend Alex podcast now just for a small criticism of him because he's, in my opinion, not Alex, but Jason Schrier, in my opinion, he's just afraid of criticism. He just doesn't want to take it, doesn't want to hear it, even though he gives it out. This is a guy who's been accused of knowing what was going on at Activision with abuse towards female employees and not reporting on it for, a year or two? Because he just didn't, feel like it? You know what I mean? So when you have someone like him reporting on this too and kind of doing this whole moral grandstand article, that to me is what's really funny. There are things that I'm fine with in this article, by the way, that I love that they're changing. Like, for example, 100-hour work weeks. No, that shouldn't happen. Genuinely, that shouldn't happen to me in terms of trying to get people to finish the game. They were talking about Red Dead Redemption 2, having 100-hour work weeks to actually finish these things. That's stupid to me. Things like sexual discrimination in terms of at the workplace. Dumb. That shouldn't happen. You should treat men, women, and anything and everything in between or otherwise well. You treat them like people, right? And the idea of transforming from a frat culture into a more real company where people show up and do their job instead of like going out and partying and not caring. I like that stuff. I'm happy with that stuff. Like I said again, you give me another Xiao Jun level well-written female character, I will be right there playing the hell out of that character forever. You know, I love that stuff. But when you are saying basically we're going to remove our humor, and also, by the way, we're going to update our game over time, which is already what GTA Online does, and then that could probably lead to a lot more microtransactions and other stuff, because it's kind of seeming like they're wanting single player and multiplayer to be maybe one thing. I'm not entirely sure yet. We'll have to see. When you get into that kind of stuff, I don't have much faith. You know, I don't have a lot of faith in that being good. Now, do I think that this game will sell poorly? No, I'm not an idiot. Of course I don't think it'll sell poorly. It'll do fine. Based off of just the name alone, it will do fine. But I do think that if you start removing the DNA of what makes your thing special, which, by the way, we have a series, What Makes It Special. Maybe we should take a look at GTA at some point. When you start removing that DNA, you're just like everything else. You're replaceable. You don't matter. You know, you see this all the time with politicians. You see this all the time with news hosts or radio hosts or content creators even. When you become this milquetoast thing that isn't willing to speak your mind or isn't willing to tell a joke or isn't willing to be different and do something unique, and you just become the same as everyone else, homogenized, I think is the word for it, you're boring. You don't matter anymore. And let's actually look at the gameplay of GTA 5. It's very fun, but there are other games that can scratch that same itch in a lot of ways too, especially now. You know, it's not the only competition out there for the open world sandbox game anymore. It just isn't. So when you start taking that away and you're left with just the problems that you've been introducing to this franchise forever, I don't know exactly why this is seen as a good idea to anybody. To me, it's ridiculous. It's a dumb thing to morally grandstand about. It's a dumb thing to promote and be interested in. Like, again, for the 500th time, female protagonist, cool, interested. Everything else here, except maybe updating because it could be cool, it just doesn't sound like it's for me. But I'm interested to see what you think about it in terms of in the comments down below. And if you did get this far, that means either you fell asleep, that's the first one I usually go to, or you didn't hate the sound of my voice and actually maybe agreed with something I said, or at least saw some logic in it, or you're a good enough of, I don't know what I want to say, good enough at criticizing me that you listened to the whole thing through before doing it, which props to you, nobody does that. But if you are still here, I encourage you, please subscribe, please leave a like. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate everyone who supports our channel. And I did want to say a very special thank you to some of our patron supporters. You're actually going to hear me typing because I'm being very unprofessional now because I forgot to keep it up and now I'm stalling to get to the actual thing. I know some of the names off the top of my head. I should say some of them. Patrons like The Dark Nightmare and Seth and Iceman Top Gun and Jason and Gregular and Mark and Vince and Nicholas and Sean and Colin and Gervaris and Arison and Jonah. Thank you very, very much to all of you. You matter very much to me and help this channel go and keep on making stuff. And if you're interested in supporting us in another way, other than just watching, which still means the world to me, there is a wonderful, beautiful Patreon. There is a thriving Discord community in the description down below. We do have a secondary channel, Degenerate Plays, where we play through videos. A lot of those video games. A lot of those gameplay videos, like Let's Plays, are much longer than my main channel videos. So if you don't hate my voice, that's another place to get your scratch, get your itch of it. So I appreciate you very much, and I hope to see you there. Have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shui.